We went a little bit over, but it's all right. All right, item J1.
Good evening, Board. Item J1 is a request for legislative intent and permission to advertise amendments to Chapter 62, Article 6, the zoning regulations relating to temporary use agreements to allow multiple-year timeframes for county-managed lagoon restoration projects. Our code allows the Board to consider temporary use agreements regardless of the zoning classification of a property where the temporary use results in a direct public benefit. However, it limits them to just 1 year. The county has utilized these temporary use agreements for its lagoon restoration projects that we have going on, and those projects require a multiple year timeline. So this is what we're hoping to do here is to get your permission to move forward with developing some code and bringing that back for your approval that would streamline that effort and prevent us from having to come back to you multiple times to cover those projects. And also, if I may add, just for the audience's benefit, that with your approval tonight, all you're doing is granting us the ability to move forward and to develop that code. We would be coming back to you after it had gone through a series of stakeholders and public input opportunities for anybody that would be interested.
Commissioner Pritchett?
From the information you gave us, this has given us a $200,000 annual savings.
Yes, ma'am, that's what we estimate it as.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Pritchett, second by Commissioner Lober. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item J2.
So item J2 is actually a citizen's request for Mr. Diston and I believe a Mr. Welsh. What I gather from their application or for their request is that they're asking the board to reduce some fines and release a lien for a new owner. In their background information, they mentioned 4 code enforcement cases with a property associated, or I should say associated with a property with the address of 325 Berkeley Street, Satellite Beach. Those code enforcement cases are 09 CE 304, 11 CE 1081, 15 CE 2011, and 16 CE 509. The fines have accrued on 3 of these, which have not been imposed as a lien, and the special magistrate had reduced those fines from $50,475 down to $10,995 in accordance with Section 62-172 and 2-176. These code sections provide the special magistrate the authority to establish fines, and also it gives him the ability to reduce the fines. The remaining case, which is CE 1081, the fines have been imposed as a lien, and pursuant to Section 2-176, only the board has the ability to reduce the lien amounts. Therefore, the special magistrate has made a recommendation for your consideration to reduce the liens from $5,600 down to $4,293. It appears that Mr. Diston is here, and he probably would like to address the board as well.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Attorney David Diston on behalf of Phil Welsh. My address is 592 Cinnamon Drive, and our place of business is 3845 West Ugali Boulevard. Thank you, Madam Commissioner. Essentially what we have here is a property that was owned by the prior owner, Larry Long. It's 325 Berkeley Street. There are 4 cases. We had a hearing before the magistrate. The magistrate did provide a reduction. He was gracious enough to provide us a reduction and a recommendation on several of these fines and liens. Essentially what ended up happening at the hearing, Your Honor, apologies, force of habit, Madam Commissioner, is that the magistrate actually found that there was a unique set of circumstances in this particular case and recommended that we address the board and see if you would be willing to do a further reduction. Now, the board does have jurisdiction over the report and recommendation from the magistrate, as well as the orders that were entered by the magistrate, because the Board of County Commissioners actually has concurrent jurisdiction with the magistrate according to Brevard Code 2-172. The jurisdiction of the magistrate is not exclusive. The jurisdiction of the magistrate shall be in addition to and not in lieu of any other procedures or remedies available to the county. And also, according to Brevard Code 2-180, the entire magistrate section is supplemental in means. In other words, it is the legislative intent of this division to provide an additional or supplemental means of obtaining compliance with county codes, and nothing contained in this division shall prohibit the county from enforcing this code by any other means the county so desires. So the county does have the ability to review these orders from the magistrate, and he encouraged us to bring these before you. Essentially, what ended up happening was Mr. Long the prior owner had a very long history with code enforcement. He died, and he had racked up $60,000 worth of fines and liens. The property was essentially a hoarder house. My client purchased the property, rehabilitated it. He brought it up into compliance. He had to actually demo the entire lot. It was essentially a garbage dump in the middle of Satellite Beach in a very nice neighborhood. And essentially, that had to be demoed. The seawall has to be repaired. And interestingly enough, because the property was the homestead of Mr. Long when he passed away, and he had a prior wife, a wife from a prior marriage, and children from a prior marriage, and a current wife, there was an issue regarding the probate and the homestead. Now, as the board might be aware, these homestead issues prohibit the court system or the Brevard County Commission from ever foreclosing on any of these liens. So what ended up happening was Mr. Welsh and Mr. Smith, an attorney, helped probate the estate because none of the beneficiaries of Mr. Long had the means to probate it. In other words, it had actually sat empty 2 years after Mr. Long had actually passed away. And it just continued to collect garbage, vagrants. It essentially become a drug den. And break-ins were a regular occurrence there. And then Mr. Welsh and Mr. Smith got together. The property was purchased. The probate was completed. And essentially what we're asking for is either an abatement of the liens and fines down to either zero or just to the hard costs that the county has incurred. Now, the hard costs that the county has incurred is $6,877 and for all these cases. And the magistrate actually reduced them down to about $15,000, close to $16,000. So that amount is actually double what the actual Brevard County costs have into this matter. So we're asking either to just wipe them away, to incentivize this sort of behavior, because essentially what would happen in this case is if Mr. Smith and Mr. Welsh had not taken the incentive to, say, hey, listen, the county might be, willing to incentivize this, might wipe away some of these liens and fines, the property would have sat there forever, because Florida Homestead requires that you can't foreclose on it. So he had a wife, so she was entitled to a life estate in the property, so she would have had homestead protection until the day she died, and the liens would have just accrued, and the fines would have accrued, and nothing could have ever been done, and they could never have opened a probate because none of them had the means to open probate. So it would have just continued to sit there, and again, it was an eyesore to the community, which is now a nice, beautiful lot ready to be built on. And we would just like to say that we would like the board to incentivize this behavior of private industry helping out the community by rehabilitating these eyesores. And again, without doing so, it would have just remained essentially a blight to the community for, 10, 20 years. And I mean, the liens only last 20 years according to statute. So I have nothing further.
All right, stick around in case there's questions. If you could take a seat. Unless someone has, Commissioner Pritchett, do you have questions for him? Okay, go ahead and sit down.
Question.
Well, yeah, he's not going away, but after Commissioner Pritchett's finished.
Mr. Calkins, what is staff cost in this?
What we have for staff cost is $8,655, and that's for the four cases. I believe there was a payment that had been made on one of the cases, so that may be what they're looking at from their number. I'm not sure where they came up with that number.
Okay, I think that that would be appropriate on this. Let me tell you why. I looked at the amount of money you paid for the property, and it's right in market value, so you didn't get a bargain on it. So I'm interested to hear where the rest of the commissioners are, but I'm very comfortable for just having you cover the taxpayers' participation in this.
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know where Commissioner Pritchett got any of these numbers. I think we need to understand what happened here. There's two aspects here. I want to get to the legal aspect because you made it incentivize this type of behavior. So let's start with that. You were a good steward. Your firm was a good steward in helping the. I got a couple questions. Your firm, as you said, represented the estate of the owner. Is that
Yes, Your Honor.
okay? Is it true that an associate in your firm purchased this property?
No.
Who purchased this property from the estate?
Shane Smith. He's not an associate. He would be the owner of the firm.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry. I was.
I guess we'll go that way. So someone in your firm purchased this. Did someone in your firm, did the individual in your firm pay market value? Did you do any type of evaluation on this?
Yes, the market value, according to the county.
We have an assessed
website.
value. That's not a market value. That's an assessed value. Two completely different things.
Yes,
completely different things.
I was just going to give that as a reference.
It's not a reference. Did you get a competitive market analysis? Did you put it on MLS? Did you get an appraisal on this at all?
It would have been impossible to actually get a comparative market analysis because, again, the property was.
It's not. You call any realtor, they will be more than willing to do it for free.
It was a matter of it's worth less than lot value because the lot value would be essentially you could get a comparative market analysis for the lot value, but then it would be minus the cost to put a seawall in, minus the cost to demolition the house and to remove all the garbage from the lot, minus the cost to do all those things. So if you were to look at a comparative market analysis, you would essentially get lot value, but it's actually worth less than that because of all the work that has to be done.
I see what you're saying. So I'm wrong here that 2 months after you purchased it for $75,000, you then didn't sell it for a 66% profit or an extra $50,000?
It was actually, I believe, $125,000 was what Mr. Welsh purchased the property for.
But your firm purchased it off the estate for $75,000. Is that correct?
No, not from the estate because it's a homestead property. It's not an estate asset. It was actually immediately upon the death of Mr. Long, it vested in the children and Mrs. Long in the amount of, I believe, 50% to her and then 12.5% to each of the heirs.
How much did Mr. Smith or Mr. Shane or the owner of your law firm purchase it for?
I believe it was somewhere around 68, somewhere between 68 and 80. I don't have the exact number.
I said 75. I'll help you out. That's somewhere between those numbers.
Yes.
So in other words, someone in your firm made 50, you're saying you're doing a service and someone in your firm made $50,000 in 2 months. Somewhere it could be as much as, I'm doing the math here, so help me out, 56,000 to as little as whatever, $48,000. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, if you don't include all the liens and fines that were also included in the property, which were taken subject to.
Well, that's a different one. We're going to get there in a minute.
Gotcha.
Did someone in your firm make 60% profit in 2 months off of this is the question.
I don't know if that number is 100% accurate. I would have to take your word for it. But my understanding is, yes, it was sold for $75,000 and it was also sold for $125,000. But again, this was subject to many liens and fines, and it was also subject to.
We're going to get there in a minute. So given you and your firm's dealings with both the estate and then the subsequent purchaser, I would understand that you would have a fiduciary responsibility probably to the estate. I assume that you went to the Florida bar and asked for an ethical opinion on this, if it was okay to purchase your firm, to purchase land off an estate, then immediately sell it 2 months later for a 60% profit?
All the beneficiaries.
Is that a no?
All the beneficiaries signed off on the issue. Again, the real main issue here is.
My question is this: do you treat all your clients this way, or the ones that are quote nearly destitute? Is your
My understanding is Mr. Smith knew the people. So they came to him, and it was one of those things where the situation was they needed to be able to probate the estate. It was, I believe it was actually possible that it was in foreclosure as well. So they were going to lose it to a foreclosure sale because 2 payments hadn't been made. There was literally 2 payments left on the mortgage, and I believe Space Coast Credit Union was in the process of foreclosing it as well. And so rather than lose it at a foreclosure sale, they were desperate to try to get some value from the property.
and in that desperation, your firm made $50,000. Is that fair?
Again, that would be a question for Mr. Smith, not.
Well, you just told me it was purchased by your firm for 68 to 70. Remember, you
Yes.
said you wanted to incentivize this behavior. I don't think taking advantage of one's clients is anything that needs to be incentivized. In fact, I think it needs to be decentivized, if that is even a word. But the Florida Bar may have a.
They weren't clients. The whole purpose of this arrangement was to get the property sold. In other words, we didn't approach them and say, we would like to probate your estate, and then we want to take advantage of you. What ended up happening was they needed somebody to buy the property, but no one could buy the property because the probate had to be done. It was in foreclosure and all these liens attached. So, and what ended up happening was they needed someone to open the probate in order to do this because they couldn't do it themselves.
And in that, again, someone in your firm made $50,000 on one piece of property in 2 months.
Well,
May I be heard?
I'm not the chairman.
May I be
Well-
heard, Madam Chairman?
We don't have your name, address, and,
I'm Shane Smith, Satellite Beach, Florida.
okay,
And,
so you were the original purchaser of the property?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. And
Are you
there's a-
done asking questions, Commissioner Tobias?
I have the larger issue on this one, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The larger issue.
You'll get a chance to speak,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
Okay.
let him
And-
finish.
Thank you. When this land was purchased, this is the larger issue. Was a title search done?
I do not know if a title search was done. I believe it would have been done before the sale at a closing.
Okay, so so the buyer or someone in your firm, we'll see Mr. Smith, I imagine, was aware the liens were on the property. Is that fair?
I believe, I don't know if he knew the extent of the liens, but at a certain point, yes, the liens, everybody was known exactly what the liens were on the property.
Okay. And yet the property was still purchased with the knowledge that there were more than $50,000 worth of liens. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, after some due diligence was done as well, into inquiring into the code enforcement's policies
Well,
regarding.
that's of the board up here. We make those determinations.
Gotcha.
And I never got a call from anyone in your office, or,
It was to the code enforcement board, apologies, but it was to the board and the.
we're the ones that make the determination after the special magistrate, trying to get it fixed. But either way, so you purchased the land, or an attorney, managing partner of the attorney, of the attorney's office, purchased it, knowing full well that there were $50,000+ worth of liens on it.
Essentially, yes.
Hopefully, there was a discounted rate, knowing that there were you wouldn't buy a property for full market value knowing that you had to pay $50,000 worth of liens. And now, with the knowledge that there's $50,000 worth of liens, am I understanding that you're now coming to the board and asking for that full $50,000 to be to be washed away?
No, we're actually asking for the hard cost, which is the county's hard cost in this matter. After we paid off, I believe, 3 or 4 of them already, the hard costs in this matter are, I believe, $6,877. That's
Okay, so you're only asking, let me get this straight, you're only asking for 85% of the fines that you were well aware of when you purchased this property to be washed away. Is that fair?
Essentially, yes. I mean, the problem here is that, again, when we did our due diligence, when we researched this matter, the board, the code enforcement, when we talked to them, they told us that it is very typical for 20% reductions in the fines to be reduced by 80%, leaving a 20% amount, plus the hard costs. The magistrate at the hearings found that this was a unique set of circumstances, and it awarded even further reduction from that 20%, and he was the one that told us we should come before the board to discuss this with you and seek a reduction.
Madam Chair, I'm getting stared at by Tad over here. I'm wondering, is that the policy of of anyone in your department to make recommendations of what the special magistrate may or may not do, and then, once again, what the board may do after the special magistrate's decision? I'm worried about the.
I think he said the code enforcement board, not the staff. Is that correct?
The code enforcement, yes.
Yeah, he said
Would that
code
be, sorry, would that
enforcement
be code, would anyone in county staff be making those recommendations as what a special magistrate or what the board?
What I understand, Commissioner, is when it goes to hearing, our staff will make a recommendation to the special magistrate along with the attorney's office as to what should be considered for the reduction. As far as folks calling into our office and asking, you know, what typically happens, I couldn't answer that or suggest that they give them advice one way or the other.
If I may, we were told that typically the reduction requested amount was 80% reduction of the fines and the hard costs, which would put it at 20% plus the hard costs. So that was the information we were provided.
Thank you very much. I don't mean to give you a hard time.
No, it's okay.
I'm just very concerned. It basically comes down to this, you know, not to muddy the water. But when you decided on a sale price, you said you did your due diligence. Was the $50,000 worth of liens on that property taken into consideration when you purchased that property?
It was considered as, it would be a loss. If it was taken to be the full amount of the liens were to be paid, then it wouldn't be profitable. But based on the fact that we would be paying 20% or less than that, as the special magistrate already reduced it even beyond the recommended amount because he found it to be a unique set of circumstances, we anticipated it being less than that. So that was kind of what we factored into this when we were doing our due diligence.
And thank you. So ultimately, that factoring and that tabulation made enough sense where you made, again, the $50,000 off of a $75,000 purchase in 2 months. I appreciate the honesty. That's good investment.
Okay, go ahead. Commissioner Pritchett?
Who owns the property right now?
Mr. Welsh,
How much did he pay for the property?
125.
If we don't remove these fines, who has to pay for them?
My understanding is that Mr. Welsh, the liens are still on the property, and Mr. Welsh will end up having to, and before he could sell the property, they would have to be paid off.
Okay, so you're really not, you're doing this right now, but it's not going to help you. It's going to help out Mr. Welsh, who paid $125,000 for the property.
Essentially, yes.
And whether you made money off that deal or not, I guess that's up to his own business savvy on whether he paid what he should have or not. The mic went out, didn't it?
A little bit.
You're still on the green.
I know. Aha, we got mic problems. See, it's not me. So I think that, with whatever, and you make business transactions, but the thing here is this is now Mr. Welsh's property. He paid $125,000 for it. The market value is, for the property appraiser, is about that. What you did with it, whatever. But here's the thing, even if we do this, it's only a delta of $2,000 overall with this massive amount of liens that were on this property. And this is why I'm glad we're setting up something different to come here, because in all fairness, I think this is fair. I wouldn't want the taxpayers to have to pick up any of this because you went into it. But I think you did due diligence to clean up the problem after you took ownership of it. So again, I'm probably comfortable with picking up staff costs, and I understand Commissioner Tobias' point, but this is now your property. So, you're the gentleman that's going to get caught, paying the fine. So I think it's appropriate.
Commissioner Lober?
I don't want to throw a wrench into anything, but I just want to indicate for everyone's edification that I've known Mr. Smith for a number of years. So I'm going to have to step out prior to voting on this particular issue. I'm just not comfortable having any position on it.
Okay. Yeah. Unless you stand to financially benefit. You have to.
Point you need to vote.
Okay. Mr. Smith, I'm going to give you an opportunity if you want to speak. You don't have to. Sometimes speaking is your own worst enemy. I'll warn you.
Yeah, some of the questions were pretty loaded with, a pretty.
I understand.
With a pretty faulty premise, so it's just a a little insulting, but
Okay.
with that, I digress.
I think your facial expressions pretty much told us that. Anything further from, so I have a motion on the floor. You made a motion. Quick. Second by Commissioner Pritchett to reduce the fines to staff cost. Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
do you have may I ask staff a quick question on that?
Okay. Staff? Ted?
Mr. Akaga, my question on this, we have some recommendations and orders. Do we, as a board, I know we just voted by 3-2 to reduce cost to staff time. Are we reducing orders or just recommendations? Because there's a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of fines on this. So that's the question.
So from what I understand, your motion would be is you wanted to reduce both the cost.
We do have I don't know that we as a board have the ability to reduce an order. We do have the ability to reduce an order?
I wouldn't.
I think he's going to the difference between a lien and a fine, the
Yeah.
lien that was imposed versus.
So I believe that the way I understand our code is set up is that the special magistrate has the authority for the fines prior to it being recorded as a lien. So he has the ability to establish what the fine amount is. He also has the ability to reduce that fine. Then when it becomes a lien, once it's imposed as a lien, the code goes on to say that only the board has the ability to reduce the lien. So those are why we typically bring that to you as a recommendation. When we hear matters, whenever in the past, when the special magistrate has made a recommendation to reduce a fine, we have not, that has been the final authority and he's handled it at that amount at that time because it has not been imposed as a lien.
So everything, fines, liens, everything will be reduced to staff time. Is that fair based on this? I'm just trying to figure out what the total cost will be to.
That's what I understood, that the total cost for the 4 code enforcement cases would be staff cost.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pritchett, that was your intention, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Item J3. That would be you.
Yeah, Mr. Liesenfeld or Peter, if you're going to handle it today, as far as giving us the update?
I'll be handling, yes, sir.
Okay. Could you just kind of give us a brief overview with what was submitted, where we're at, and what the process is from this point through the auditing of the numbers?
Sure. So USSSA, throughout the year from April 1st, 2018 to March 30th of this year, contractually has to provide how many room nights they delivered in terms of players and coaches on their property and how many of those people, stayed in a hotel or some other accommodation. To date, we've received a report of 58,422 rooms. The next step is, because that amount is below the 75,000 that's in the contract, they also have to establish how much was spent on maintenance of the property. I just saw a report come across this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to really review it yet, but I'm under the understanding that that amount is in excess of 500,000, which would then sort of cure any penalties that they would incur for being below the 75,000 room nights. So the next step for us is we have RSM accounting firm, which is our auditors. going to go and take a look at that maintenance report and audit that to make sure that it is in fact above the 500,000, and that should be done by the end of this month.
Let me follow up to that real quickly. So if RSM, our internal auditors, are looking at the maintenance report and the costs that were expended with respect to that, are they, or do we have anyone else auditing or ensuring that the room nights that were reported are in fact accurate?
They'll also be taking a look at the room nights, but because they're under 75,000 and it's not a question of, we're off by 5,000 or 10,000, we're, significantly below the 75,000, that's not as big a concern for us ultimately, because...
Let me ask if I may. My concern, the 58,422 may be perfectly correct, but my concern is what if, in the off chance, they really only have booked out 30,000 rooms, in which case the amount that you had mentioned that they would have to spend in order to cure that issue would skyrocket. I just want to make sure that we're essentially making sure that they're doing what they need to report proper numbers, and that we don't, as a county, end up in a worse position by letting them off for less than they're required to do.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to the county attorney on that question because it does relate to what the contract actually states, so.
Well, as I understand it, verification procedures have been underway, and they've been checking the room nights. There may be a few questions about some of the room nights, but they have been verifying. Staff has been verifying the room nights.
So not RSM, so that would be county employees.
Well, RSM may be assisting with that as well.
Mr.
I can
Vate?
address both those issues.
Please.
First, TDC staff has been involved in checking on the rooms both through two different formats. One is through Anthony Travel, which was their designated agent, as well as a spreadsheet of information that the contract provides for that USSSA can provide with specific information that enables us to go back and try to verify the stays when it's not through Anthony Travel. That has been occurring. We've had a staff member working on that for several months. In addition to that, RSM is going to be going behind the staff member to verify. Now, in terms of your comments about the 58,000 whatever
Yes,
numbers, the $500,000 number and what we're looking at that Peter just mentioned, I believe the specific contract provision states that they have to spend $250,000 a year in maintenance. There's another provision that talks about the county making the deposit and then making the deposit into account. That's a separate fund. On this $250,000, what the contract provides for is if they are below by a percentage, whatever that percentage is, that they are below the 75,000 rooms, so let's say it's 25%,
Yes, sir.
they would have to pay 25% more than the 250,000. So even if they drop from 58,000 to a number like you said, 30,000, the increase that they're going to have show us that they've paid in maintenance, I believe USSSA's those numbers are going to be far in excess, that even if it's not at the 58,000 number, any reasonable number you can get from 58,000, and I'm not trying to say, that we're there yet, that's the verification process going there. I believe, and that's subject to verification from RSM now, we just have to show that they have made those expenditures. And then they fulfill the contract in that regard.
What's the anticipated timeline for having RSM give us back essentially a signed, sealed, and well-loved report?
Yeah, end of July is
End of
when this-
July?
yeah.
Okay, perhaps, rather than spending too much time on this today, I may just wait and see how that pans out, and then we'll go from there if there's some need to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Keep pushing the microphone. Okay. Just a couple thoughts. I think this is going to have remedy on its own, but when I started getting this information, I got curious because every time I'm in Vieira, this place is packed with ball players. And so I asked Mr. Kranis, and they actually had an extra consultant do USSSA, and they came back with 108,000 nights. So, Mr. Kranis, I asked you, because this is a big discrepancy, and you said, well, I'm not sure because this is, them giving us the numbers. And then I asked you, well, is there people not accounted for in the 58,000 number probably, and you said yes, more than likely, because that's Anthony Travel, that's only the ones that book through them. So that's not including the Airbnbs, it's not including the overflow that's coming up to Titusville, which, thank you, we're building 2 more hotels on the interstate probably because of this. So Commissioner Isner, this is kind of your night tonight. Last year when we were bringing this up, she said, you guys, we got to get a better method of counting these room nights. And it is, it's very ambiguous. So I think in some way, I would like to give direction tonight to Mr. Kranis and Eden to get, Ms. Bentley, sorry, I always talk to you in person, together with USSSA, and let's get a better way of verifying these room nights, because just that travel agency alone is not going to do it. So we're going to have to find a way to statistically get these numbers together. Mr. Kranis, you said over in Orlando you used a different method that you thought was a little bit better by doing a sample and doing a statistic that way. So here's the thing. If there's not enough room nights, they do need to jump in. It was the contract. I'm so with it. But you guys, these guys are doing such a job. And I want to remind you, this stadium was empty. It was a mess. You guys came up with this idea. I watched all the commission meetings at the time. I was very intrigued with everything that put together with it. And because of that, hotels started going up in Vieira, and businesses and restaurants started going in. So this thing's working. There's 3 things in our county right now I see that really draw tourism: the beaches, the launches, and this stadium with the ballers coming in. Families travel around. Just a little, y'all are going to have to endure this. My granddaughter's 12. She just played a girls' fast pitch tournament on the other side of her state, North Carolina, and they won, and they're getting ready to go down to Treasure Coast as a family to play her 12-year-old fast pitch, and I'm hoping they end up at the stadium soon. But they go, and there's like thousands of people that go to these things, and I gave you guys a little copy of the schedule, and I love softball and baseball, so this is kind of fun, and they're pretty packed, and they're coming from Canada and all around the world. So we've got a really good thing here, and I guess we got to work this out, but I sure don't want to get the message out that we are so appreciative for these group of people that came up and really got on the ball with the stadium and brought in all these tourist dollars. So that's just what I wanted to say. But I would like to make a motion to give Mr. Kranis and Ms. Bentley direction to get with them, and let's get a better way of getting these room nights together.
Are you just asking for them to get options or to actually formalize something with them?
I would like for them to formalize a better method of doing this, because what we're doing I don't think is accurate enough. And Mrs. Isnardi asked for this last year, and we probably should get on it last year. So,
Okay, Jim?
Well, anything we have to bring back has to come back to the board, because Schedule 1 is very specific on how you account for the room nights.
I'll second it then.
Yeah.
Mr. Kranis, is that good?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Smith? Well, I have a motion and a second that we come up with a better formula for calculating room nights.
Yeah, I like that idea,
Okay.
because I had a condo in Key Largo for 20 years, and I used VRBO and HBO. VRBO and HomeAway, and then Airbnb got involved. And I can just cite you one example. I had a party at my house last year for relatives to come, and there were probably about 25, and I gave them the names and addresses and phone numbers of 3 different motels that are close to my home. And after they all got there, not one used a motel. They all used Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO. So I'm thinking most people do that, and they don't go to motels. So how are you guys going to how are you ever going to be able to count those people? Because I don't know that there's any reporting agency that any of those 3 groups are associated with. So I think that muddies the water quite a bit.
Frank?
Well, the answer to that question is the contract provides that they have to give us the name of the people and the hotel and some other specific information. So that's required for each stay, and that's what the contract provides for, and that's what we were going on. So what you're really asking is to come up with an alternative method, and that's what we would do.
And I would suggest a reasonable alternative, perhaps something that where accountability is ensured, however, reasonability as well, because again, and it doesn't also account for families that come, and that's hard to calculate as well. That's the part that's a little concerning to me, but I have a card, Kendall Moore.
Don't do it, Kendall.
Run. No, I'm just kidding. You're at the furthest corner of the room, so it took you a bit. Name and address or name and city, please.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Chair, Commission. My name is Kendall Moore. I'm an attorney with the Moore Law Group. Professional address 895 Barton Boulevard in Rockledge. We certainly are appreciative, Commissioner Lober, for you putting this on the agenda. I think Mr. Kranis and the county attorney and the staff have done an extremely diligent job in their attempt to count, verify, and the like. But I think we would all agree it's been far more complicated and cumbersome than would have been expected. It was our understanding as well, Commissioner Lober, in addition to those reports, that there have been almost a one-by-one verification. When you've got things like Airbnb and others, there's no methodology other than attempting to actually call those people one by one to do that. And I think Tom Bartusek and others, almost every day that they've been at work has been about that process. And so we're very thankful for your willingness to look at another methodology or concept. Some of the things I think we've learned, Commissioner, many of our participants, more than 70%, are children. And in the original contract, there's no concept for a way to even count parents that are coming. And we know many of us that have young children, parents are actually coming here and staying. So I think the idea for us, looking at the methodology for counting, is simply trying to identify some that are there. USSSA did invest in its own third-party consulting report to take a look. And one of the things the consultant brought forward is that when you looked at the number of teams that traveled more than 100 miles and stayed for multiple days, we know they're here, we know they're playing. The concern for us is trying to ascertain where they're staying. And I think Mr. Abate brought it up. Even on our side, trying to add more information and other things that would help would probably be beneficial in that regard. The one issue that we would like to add that I think there's been some confusion in addition to the counting is this concept of unavailability. And unavailability, there's the 75,000 room night requirement, as you spoke about, but there's a provision that says in the event that unavailability can be proven, that ultimately there's some relief from that 75,000. Now, it doesn't say about a time, doesn't say by day, by month, by particular housing type. It doesn't give any specificity. And so I think it would be helpful for USSSA and for the county if there were some clarity brought to the definition of unavailability, because it ultimately would provide relief. And in the county's defense, they've not been able to even address that or do that for us or even consider room nights relative to unavailability. So it is certainly your policy and your motion, but any opportunity, I think, for allowing staff in the county attorney's office to go in and readdress the definition of unavailability would certainly be helpful for us in that regard.
And I'm not trying to be unreasonable to USSSA by any means. I think, as you've correctly mentioned, there are things that could be improved for everyone involved. So it's something where I think when you have a contract of this magnitude, anything we can do to clarify any ambiguous or vague terms or to implement a position in that actual contract by amending it or otherwise, that'll put us in a position where we're not going to have this problem in the future. I think that benefits everyone. So, I don't want anyone to mistake this for being anything other than an attempt just to get us in a better place.
And I think we can verify for you, Mr. Lober, staff has been extremely diligent. Our point is this: we know that people are here, but the county manager has been very clear. What he needs to bring to this commission is what can be proven by the data that's available. And so we're happy to provide all the information that we have, work with them, but I'm sure that they'll be back to you at the end of July with that audited report, and we're fully prepared to participate in whatever RSM or anyone else has from a request perspective.
Thank you, sir.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, Commissioner Smith?
Yeah. Mr. Moore? Yes, sir. Sorry. Do you have any idea off the top of your head, or maybe you have it in writing somewhere, how many teams played during that period?
Yeah, I didn't bring the team number. I'm not sure. Does anybody have a number of teams? I'll ask Mr. Wabick if he may be able to provide me any idea about number of teams. 2,107 traveling teams during that 12-month reporting period.
Okay, I was just curious, because that's an awful lot of people. And I've seen numbers of tourism dollars in 2016, 2017, and prior, and they've gone up each year. And we haven't done anything different in the county. The beaches haven't gotten better, and KSC hasn't gotten more rides or anything. So it's got to be these guys are bringing in an awful lot of people. So, and that was the whole point of bringing them in the first place. I was very involved with bringing them here. And what has struck me recently about that is that prior to them, that stadium was occupied by first the Miami Marlins, Florida Marlins back in 1993. That was the first year. And my time's up.
You're cut off.
You have to help me understand how to limit commissioners on time. That's amazing to do.
And they were here until, I don't remember what, 2002, something like that, and then the Nationals came in. I would venture to say, and this is totally off the wall, but I would venture to say neither of those teams ever brought in more than 600 room nights. And this is huge. These guys are bringing tens of thousands of room nights. So here's where I'm going. This is really off the wall. And I'm just throwing this out as a rhetorical question. Why are we even asking you guys, except for the fact that that's part of the contract? But you guys are bringing so much money into this community by all of these teams and all of these parents and all of these kids. They're spending their money here. They're here for 5 days, 10 days, whatever. And they're in motels, they're in hotels, they're buying at restaurants. I know the Publix out here puts on extra people when they have teams in town. That's how busy they are. We never had a requirement for those teams, for the Marlins and the Nationals. So they used that stadium, and they didn't have any requirement for room nights. So to me, as I think more about it, these guys are doing a tremendous job. They're great partners. They invested $20 million plus out of their own money to improve these fields. The Nationals and the Marlins, they used to grind us for dollars for us to give to them. They didn't want to spend $1 of their. So it's almost like a punishment that we're requiring these guys to pay extra. So I think that's something the commissioners should look at too. Think about this in the long term, 5 years, 10 years from now. Why are we requiring them as a punishment type thing to prove that they've brought X amount of rooms in where we never did that for the professional teams? And they didn't do squat for us. These guys are doing a lot. So just a point.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Maybe we're requiring it because we made the mistake of not doing it with the other teams, but.
Well, and that could be too.
Commissioner Lober?
I was just going to say, do you view our request and the contracted for provision that USSSA is obligated to give us the room nights as a punishment of any sort? I view it as something akin to the board doing its fiduciary duty to ensure that we get a return on the investment. And I'm not looking to play games with the room nights, just as I doubt you're looking to play games with the room nights. I just think it gives us a method to track how successful you are. The more successful you are, the better. Great, wonderful. Keep on keeping on and keep on bringing people into the county. But, I just, until I see evidence that links a cause and an effect, I don't presume that just because there's a correlation that the entirety of that correlation is due to whatever the initial factor is. So, for instance, if I have a great year and I decide to go take a vacation in Europe, it's not because they did or didn't put up a stadium there. They may have done that, but the fact that I'm choosing to spend money when I have situations totally independent of what they may have done over there, that's what's driving me to go there. And I'm not saying that you all aren't bringing a tremendous number of people over here. I'm sure you're bringing a lot of people over here. I just don't know how many, and I think the room nights, when we figure out how to get a good means of counting them and verifying them that's not abusive to anyone that's involved, I think we're all going to be in a better spot where we can say, look, we can articulate and illustrate exactly what the benefit of USSSA is, and we can go from there. I think viewing it as a punishment or something that's being done to twist someone's arm is the wrong way to go about it. I'm doing it so that I can see that there is, in fact, that ROI, and so I can sing your praises as well.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Keep pushing that. You guys signed the contract, so, I think it's something we're doing contractually, so that's fine with me too. But the tourism tax dollars increased by $2 million a year after this went in, and you had 3 or 4 hotels go in just because that stadium went in. And not only is that tourist tax dollars, but that's also business revenue dollars. And not the Viera is not already growing, but this substantially increased the traffic into that area. And what else it did too is you guys picked up the maintenance on the stadium, which we no longer had to do, which was a real problem. And when you guys got it, we were still in a bit of a downturn. So, in light of all this, and I know you're going to meet all these nights when we get all the information together. I just don't think that's an issue, but I just want to piggyback on. Thank you for all you guys have done and brought here. I handed out the calendars to the staff up here. You have the men's Well, number one, Pride won the Nationals last year. It's our own home team. And if this is NFL, you guys will be cheering yay Bucks or something, I'm sure. But this is a big deal for the women's team to win Nationals. You got the USSSA Men's Major World Series coming in a couple months. You have the Women's World Series coming through. You have children's fast pitch coming in. I mean, y'all have picked this calendar up online. We don't talk about it enough. This is a big deal of what we have going on in the county. The only thing else I wish is that y'all would move to the north end. Sorry, Kurt. But it's good tourism traffic to its families. You don't have to worry about these guys getting busted in the bars and stuff. This is perfect tourism, and it's working. But you did sign the contract.
Yes, ma'am.
So we got to come up with the room nights. But I just can't thank you enough for picking us and doing this, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Got it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Is it clear on what we are?
Well, that's why I thought I'd try to press the request button, but,
You're not on. It's a.
okay. Well, you must have me blocked, but that's okay. What I wanted to ask is, did you want to expand the motion on staff coming up with the alternative methodology to include trying to put in a specific definition on unavailability, which we will work to do? And I just think it would be helpful if the board would add that to the motion.
Okay, did you have the original motion?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you
I
did.
did, or did you? If you did, I
It was
apologize,
Miss-
then I'll
it
go
was
ahead and
Miss
second
Pritchett.
it.
Okay, I think you must have seconded anyways, yes. And Mr. Cranes, we talked about some formula used in Orlando with the statistical thing. I think that would be a little bit cleaner, because you're not going to be able to get every single thing, but I think if you took a sample and were able to come up with those numbers, I think USSSA probably be better to agree with that. And you know what, sometimes families travel here and they don't want to tell you where they're staying. So you're going to have to figure all that out, but you seem to know what you're doing with this, so.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you did make the motion, if I remember correctly. So
did.
you amended,
I'll add
and
that in.
Commissioner Lober,
We'll
second?
Second, Vince.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Item 4, Mr. Smith?
Well, this is a resolution for Central Florida Expressway Authority, and we don't need a vote or anything. It's just something that we're going to present to them.
We might need to vote, you sure?
No, we're not. It's,
I think we have to.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I'm not prepared to give
I
you
don't
any
think
more
you have to
information.
read it. I think you just, I read it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure
Okay.
most of us
I'll
read
make a
it.
motion that we approve resolution for Central Florida Expressway Authority.
I have a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second?
second by Commissioner Pritchett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Commissioner Lober voting no. Item number 5. Yes, Commissioner Tobias.
Is that okay, Madam Chair? Thank you. Given the lateness of the hour and the number of speakers that have been patiently waiting out there, I would request that we table this till the next meeting, Madam Chair.
Well, you have 3 people that came to speak on this item.
We had 30 people that came to speak last time that we had an advisory board, and we sent them all home. So this is 1/10 of the amount of people that
I
we
mean,
had.
it's your prerogative, it's your item.
Yes, I would
You can
request.
move to table. and-
Yeah, I would move to table this till a later date. Till the 23rd.
I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias to table his item till the 23rd meeting. Do I have a second?
Bless you.
Motion fails for lack of second.
Okay, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, guys, I offered to table this, so I'll go through with this. On May 16th, at a scheduled workshop and advisory board, I passed out a spreadsheet of some suggestions that I had. Of course, these spreadsheets lacked all context, as it was my intention to explain my ideas and make several different suggestions at the workshop. It was not meant to be an all or nothing proposition, as much of it as it was meant to be handled individually. For example, one of the documents also indicated I was seeking changes to the EELS boards. Rather than attacking my staff members, there had been a discussion at an advertised meeting and cordially reached the EELS board cordially reached out to my office. I intended to meet with interested members of the community about this and discuss their ideas. However, one particular board decided to take things in a different direction. This is what it comes down to, board. I don't mind as an individual being attacked. I many times fully deserve it. However, when someone on my staff is attacked, I take that extremely seriously. The people that work behind the scenes didn't put their name out on a ballot and certainly don't deserve to be treated in a poor fashion. And that's the genesis of this. So after learning that I was considering doing away with the Historical Commission to modify the the Historical Commission made it clear that it is their culture is such that is no longer intended to serve a purpose. They showed their true colors when they wrongfully lashed out at a member of my staff. They are not concerned about history or facts. They are concerned about themselves, their social group, and their ability to put Historical Commission on their resume and LinkedIn pages. It's only after this that it became clear that my office would be able to prove that my staff did not make an error, that they quickly backtracked, but the damage had already been done, and they had blasted a baseless accusation out to everyone. I'm sure your office got those many emails between my staff and the Historical Commission. Any group that would maliciously attack a commissioner's staff member to deflect from their own ineptitude has no business being an advisory board to the county commission. Some members apparently not realizing that they had hit, quote, reply all on an email that included my staff members, continued to criticize my staff even after it was obvious that she had done nothing incorrectly. Further, this is not an isolated incident. Emails between the Historical Commission members show that this board has gotten grossly political and reckless. Comments such as, quote, on public email, I hope this commissioner does not get reelected, were exchanged via email. Which brings up another issue, sunshine. So this question is for Ms. Bentley. Does Florida sunshine law apply to members of the Historical Commission?
Yes.
What are the repercussions for violating sunshine?
They could be reprimanded, they could be fined, there are all sorts of repercussions.
If there was an issue that would have major impact on an advisory board that would lead to board discussion or action, would you recommend board members communicate with each other at length on the subject via email?
No.
Madam Chair, I'd like to grant permission to advertise and issue legislative intent to dissolve the Historical Commission and institute alternatives, which would be in the right of the County Commission. That would be my motion, Madam Chair.
Commissioner, I have a motion by Commissioner Tobias. Do you want more further discussion, or do you want to see if there's a second first for dissolution? It's your item.
Whether here for speakers or second, that's your call, Madam Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Lober, do you want to hear from speakers, or do you want to speak first?
If I get my mic to work, there it is, I'm sorry. No, I just want to just put a couple things out there before we have the speakers come up. Just for Commissioner Tobias' benefit, if there is any benefit, look, I will support, with or without cause, you moving to remove your particular appointee, whoever that might be. I truly don't know, from that commission. I don't know what the political situation is in that particular group. I can tell you that since I've been put in office, that I've gone to one of their meetings, maybe two of their meetings, and I didn't observe the behavior that you're describing. Not to say that any of it's inaccurate, not to say that what you're saying didn't take place. If you saw the emails, I believe that they did in fact get exchanged. But my concern is that commission has done valuable work. It's been around a very long time. It's been doing well, and if there's a problem with respect to the composition of the commission, I would urge perhaps the commissioners to look at their particular appointees and determine whether or not those are the best individuals to represent them. I'm satisfied with mine. As far as him doing it potentially, and I know you didn't accuse my appointee, certainly didn't single him out, but as far as the possibility of him doing it for LinkedIn or a CV purpose or resume purpose, I approached him and asked him to do it. He never approached me. So I can tell you that your arguments may well apply to some of them. I don't know. But I'm just not there in terms of being on board to dissolve it at this point. I've not seen anything that's so systemic and so unfixable with potential changes among appointees that we need to go ahead and disband the commission.
Okay, I'm gonna, oh,
Oh, no,
do you want to respond? Okay. I have some cards. Ben Markle, and after Ben, Bob Gross.
Hi, good evening. I'm
Name and
Dr.
address or name and,
Sure, I'm
City.
Dr. Ben Markle. I live in Titusville, work in Cocoa Village. I'm Executive Director of the Florida Historical Society, which was established in 1856, making it the oldest existing cultural organization in the state. We're proudly based here in Brevard County. Our statewide headquarters are in the old 1939 post office in Cocoa Village, where our Library of Florida History is located. We are a statewide organization, but we also operate the Brevard Museum of History and Natural Science and manage the historic Rossiter House Museum and Gardens in O'Galley. So we have deep ties to Brevard County, but I'm not here for FHS this evening. I'm here as one of your volunteer commissioners on the Brevard County Historical Commission. And I want to thank you and commend you for you and your predecessors' excellent choices of commissioners, not speaking of myself, but my colleagues. Over current and past commissioners include historians and archaeologists and museum professionals, authors of books and articles on local history and culture, as well as people with ties to Brevard history, people who've lived that history, people whose family have been here for centuries. Also newcomers to the area, some of you have appointed, but what we all share is a passion for Brevard County history. And the people you have appointed and your predecessors have appointed have been very active in getting historic markers from the state placed all throughout our county. They have maintained an archive, they've published the Indian River Journal, all sorts of activities to preserve and protect our long history. And again, you're to be commended for appointing people with that passion. You know, we're all excited about Brevard County history that goes back to the Windover people up in Titusville. You know, the burial mound, the burial cemetery, the Pond Cemetery discovered there shows that these people were here between, they were older than 3,200 years older than King Tut, more than 2,000 years older than the Great Pyramid in Egypt. Our history goes all the way from there up to the anniversary that we're celebrating this coming week, the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11's landing on the moon. And all of the manned launches from America came from Brevard County, and so much history in between. And the people you have appointed protect that history at virtually no cost to taxpayers or this commission. It's a group that is very passionate in the past and currently, and again, you're to be commended for appointing those people. You're the ones who control who is on the committee, who is on the commission. And, you know, of course, you have the right to eliminate the commission. By statute, you would have to come up with other ways of preserving our local history and culture. But I'd say that the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, certainly applies here. And I appreciate Commissioner Lober's suggestion that if changes were to be made, the easiest way to do it is appoint commissioners who you think might do a better job. But I think you've got an excellent group here, and there are people that are passionate about it. My resume certainly doesn't need any padding. I do this out of passion for the history, and I think that the rest of my colleagues on the commission now and in the past are the same. So thank you for your time this evening.
Commissioner Pritchett? Oh. Bob Gross and Danielle Reeder after Bob.
I'm Bob Gross. I live in Rockledge for the past 10 years, and I've lived in Melbourne for 60 years before that. I got involved with Brevard County history in 1959 when my neighbor, who was the daughter of a previous county commissioner, Edson Boyd Arnold of Malabar, told me she was born in a log cabin on an Indian mound in Malabar. Well, I rode my bike down there that week from Melbourne, and my first artifact, a hand-wrought hinge that came off a cabin door. These are the kind of treasures that, just one of many treasures that Brevard County has. Brevard County has the richest history of any county in the United States. Ponce de Leon first named Cape Canaveral, the first geographically named place in the North American continent. And we sent people to the moon from here. And everything in between, the French were here, the Spanish were here, the, who else was here? The British were here, plantations. I got involved with the Historical Commission back in 1964 when Ada Parrish organized the first historical society. They met at Carpenter's Hall, and I was 14 at the time and went to that very first meeting. We had a Brevard County Historical Society. Because of our county's length, it's split up into three: the North Brevard, the South Brevard, and Central Brevard, which today is called the Mosquito Beaters. We've been preserving, well, the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966 mandates that states and communities make efforts to preserve their history, okay? That boils down to the state of Florida, which has a preservation officer. And it requires the states or the counties and municipalities to also do that. We've never had a historic preservation officer in Brevard County. It's always been assigned to some planner to do it who has no experience at all. It's a travesty because of our history. The Historical Commission is composed of 15 members. And yes, we have had some oddballs on the commission over time. Some political opportunists who, like to have it on their resume for when they run for election. We've had some other people that are just absolutely crazy, but it evolves over time. And you can't criticize the whole commission, because of a few individuals. It used to be that the county attorney would advise us on the Sunshine Law, and it might not hurt to have a class again. If you could send somebody to one of our meetings. I'm not on the commission now. I am a past chairman, but we do a lot of good work. We have a huge archive of mostly documents. We've helped the county attorney in some court cases just recently. And I think because of some of the information we were able to provide, the case was dropped. You may be able to...
No, it's proceeding, but it was helpful.
The one on Audubon, that area?
There's that one, and then there's some beach issues, and there's some other issues.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully we did some help. Anyway, there's just a tremendous amount of stuff that we have. Photographs. Old pioneers here donate their photographs to us, their stories. We have over 100 oral histories that we've made. Just recently, I did one of Jackson Vaughn of Melbourne, the old city attorney. His father was city attorney. He came in 1926. He describes driving into Melbourne, and the Melbourne Hotel, which is prominently on the corner there of New Haven and US 1, was being built. The stories that we collect for the history of this county, you need to appoint a county historic preservation officer to guide us. We have no professional. We're all volunteers. And we're the only county of our size that doesn't. Dade County, Broward County have staff archaeologists, staff archivists. We have nothing like that. It's all volunteers. The library helps us. We have a minimal budget, but to try and get rid of us because of one or a couple of oddballs, please don't give it a second thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Reeder.
Dan Ryder, Cocoa Beach. I appreciate your time. I'll try to be quick. I'm a general contractor, a member of the Florida Surf Museum, and I currently serve as one of Commissioner Smith's appointees to the Brevard County Historical Commission. It is not on my resume. I do not have a LinkedIn page. This item proposes to dissolve the Historical Commission. And apparently, this is to be treated as an urgent emergency procedure and to run independent of the review afforded other advisory boards. Oddly enough, the reasoning behind the sudden dissolution of the county's historical team is to provide interested citizens of Brevard County added opportunities for local government involvement. I am of the opinion that the Historical Commission performs that exact function, and exceptionally well. It is an active citizen volunteer organization founded in 1963 by Ada Parrish, which works in partnership with the Florida Historical Society, NASA, the UCF Riches Project, the Museum of Natural History, and all of the municipalities in this county to both preserve and collect historical records, coordinate state historical markers, produce landmark guides, and among other things, to conduct oral histories. The Historical Commission is a highly interested group of volunteers, archaeologists, museum directors, surfers, veterans, authors, history professors, who meet once a month in the Cocoa Library, a government facility, and I will say public comment occurs at nearly every meeting. When I brought this agenda item to the attention of Ben Malik, the mayor of Cocoa Beach, he questioned the reasoning behind eliminating historical commissions on the 50th anniversary of perhaps the most astounding event in all of human history, which launched right here from this county. I would ask this commission, therefore, to consider the benefit of a volunteer history corps and what it adds to the cultural value of a community, and to weigh that against any associated costs of administering. I would also urge the commission to take a look at this book, which is the history of Brevard County, published by the Historical Commission, 1995. To my mind, it should be required reading for county employees. On page 30, for example, there's a 1763 map of our coast, which shows the vestiges of a tidal inlet at the very north end of Patrick Air Force Base. Also, we have an edifying chapter on county planning entitled Old Towns, New Towns, Developers, and Dipper Dredges. There are hidden lessons in the past for those who care to look. And I would also recommend a commission-wide review of the pertinent emails, which are in the public record, that might better explain the events that transpired and which motivated this proposal. To me, it seems a county is nothing more or less than a group of people connected by a particular place and time. And while the interests of every person in this community do not always align, we would do well to remember that all of us are inexorably linked. And I thank you.
Hope Guilford?
Hi.
Name and
Thank
address,
you.
please.
Oh, Hope Guilford, 536 Delanoy Ave, Cocoa, Florida. Well, I just want to take a moment to thank you guys for the job you do. I know firsthand that it's thankless at times and that you work really, really hard. And I appreciate your dedication, each and every one of you. Well, most of you. Just kidding. Not really. But to your dedication to your job and to making sure that you're always doing what's the highest and best good in the interest of our county and our citizens. So thank you. I would have spent a little bit more time, but Commissioner Tobias pretty much answered my what I was going to go through. My mom is a pioneer of this county. She led the homeschooling coalition when homeschooling was illegal back when I was little. She led the efforts to pass the law to make it legal. My history lessons were based on what my fiance, Henry Parrish's mother, did with the Historic Commission. That was how I was taught and educated for Brevard history, was through the efforts of Speedy Harrell, Clyde, Ada Parrish, and all the work that they did to preserve history. And I understand, Councilman Tobias, that you and Henry seem to have a thing. And I will say, I do find it very coincidental that the second he was not mayor, that you went after the CRA that benefited Cocoa Village and resulted in Riverfront Park. That isn't even in your own district. And I take offense to that, number one, because when I was little, there were drive-by shootings and dead bodies in the dumpster down there. And because of 20 years of this man's work and 56 years of his mother's work, Brevard County is what it is now today, from the work of people who care about this county. And you guys care about the county and preserving history and the integrity. And the last thing I wanted to say is, people come here for 3 reasons. The port, well, now I'll have to add the stadium to it. 4 reasons. The port, the space industry, huh?
I forgot the port.
Yeah, you did. I heard that. I'll add it for you.
Thank you.
The cruise, the Indian River Lagoon. I have an issue with the AstroTurf thing because I haven't, I was told, hey, we'll bring tourism here. Well, I have yet to have a phone call from anybody making a reservation at the bed and breakfast I run to come see the AstroTurf. But they do come from the Indian River Lagoon, and they do come for the history, and that is, we're lucky to have what we have in Cocoa. In the whole state of Florida, I have people that come and stay with us just because of the thing that Ben was talking about, the museums and the historical society. And I ran into a lady in the bathroom, which changed everything that I was going to say tonight, because she homeschools. And she's like, are we allowed to go in there? Yes, go in there. That is where I got my education, from the history of Brevard. So I would ask you to, sir, Mr. Tobias, to examine your heart and your motives, because, my dad's a pastor and has been a pastor. My mom led the homeschooling coalition. I've been here my whole life, born and raised in Brevard. And the Lord says, a man, he knows the thoughts and the minds and the motives of man. And I would ask you, sir, to examine your hearts and your minds and your motives in this situation. And I would ask the rest of the council to please maintain, preserve the integrity of this great county that I love and that I call home. And I thank you all for your time, and that is all. Good evening.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Thank you, ma'am. I believe I probably in alignment with Commissioner Lober's thoughts tonight with that. It's a very passionate board. It's very active. And some of the things they do, if they weren't doing it, we would have to hire out to get some of the things done. And knowing this board and the ones that have been in my office, I wouldn't enjoy ever trying to do something that would take them out of the passion of the things they love to do. On this note, though, I think this is the perfect opportunity to say this. People are going to have different opinions and ideas, and I read a little bit of the emails. I'm not sure the extent of it, but you know what? People are going to have to start being kind. You can disagree without an emotional mess in it, but you might think kindness is weakness. It takes great strength to be kind in hard situations. And let me tell you, I got one little fellow that wants me to resign every time he shows up. So, and y'all applaud it. But I just want to say, it's just we just got to get something going here to where you're kind to the staff here. And I mean, I understand this. I'm very defensive of people in my life that I love also. But, something's going to have to change here soon. And, I don't know who's going to have to do it, but somebody's going to have to start behaving like grown-ups. I'll just say that one more time, because this isn't going to end well. And I've got to tell you, I'm real thankful that my children and grandchildren aren't watching some of this tonight. And I want to charge y'all with that as we move forward, to think about that, because, you can get a lot more done being kind than you can having to just give a piece of your mind. You're going to give enough of your mind sometimes, you're not going to have anything left. So I just want to throw those ideas out to you and throw this in right there. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any more comments or input?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Tobias?
Yep. Before I don't get a second on this one, I appreciate the emotion. I didn't want to talk about competence, because that's where, if you were to pull down this, you would see the seal. The seal's got 3 dates on it. 1513, 1969, know both of those, and then the 1854 date on it. is the seal of Brevard County. That's the wrong date. Brevard County did not become Brevard County in 1854. Brevard County became Brevard County in 1855. And I know what we're saying is it may be a year off, but if I taught government and said America, you know, we signed some document in 1777 or something like that, you would laugh me off the stage. So I am going to fight tooth and nail when my staff is attacked. By all means, say whatever the heck you want. I'll tell you what you're going to get in return from me. Not a darn thing. Because if you look at the emails that came out of my office, we were kind, we were cordial. We never said one thing that I would not mind being read with a hot microphone. Absolutely no concerns. This is gross incompetence. That the fact that it was St. Lucie County, that an act of the legislature turned Brevard County into Brevard County in 1855. Don't believe me? Google it. The fact, I know I'm right. I know I'm darn right, and the seal is incorrect.
Okay, we can't go back and forth, guys.
And
sorry.
the fact that our historical bodies got incorrect, you know, and we asked about this, we never got any comment. You're an advisory board to bring this up. It's you know, I'm trying to save taxpayers here $1,821. If this was a competent.
Okay, guys, please. I mean, how would you like it if we all talked up here when you're up here talking?
I
Please
have
be
no
respectful.
ill will to any past elected officials. Up here, I have issues to respond. I've had issues from day one about CRAs in each and every district. And the fact that, you know, and I appreciate you standing up here. It's wonderful that you're fighting for your fiance. That is absolutely great. It is unfortunate that the people of that state legislative district thought Tyler Soroy would be a better representative. But it's wonderful that you're here, and I greatly appreciate that. However, again, I said I'm trying to save $1,821, and this was a way to bring up to save that amount so we could pass it along to help with the infrastructure and the lagoon. So, you know, I'm sorry about that. I hope that we can move forward as a board without the historical commission and lend some accuracies to our seal as we move forward. So I'll put the motion out there, knowing that we will not get that I will not get a second on this one, Madam Chair.
Anybody else wanting to speak? Or I just want to say that I from what you brought up, you have genuine concerns and they're valid. However, I'm a little confused on, I get the seal issue. I mean, I guess I would like to learn some more about that. I mean, more than maybe that I would have liked to have known before, perhaps. Maybe it is the job of the Historical Commission to explain that if it's not an error or if it's just always been whatever. But if I committed an action or eliminated a board or did something every time somebody attacked my staff, I mean, I would have agendized items every meeting. And I'm not saying that they were right in doing it. I'm not saying that that's the proper thing to do. And I'm not justifying the attacks, you know, but I would like to, before I go on further or before I make a decision and maybe, you know, you could provide to our office clearly what occurred, you know, or because I don't know if that was if my appointments were involved in that, because I would like to know if there's just cause to remove somebody if I'm responsible for putting them on that board, because I wouldn't want anybody as my representative treating anybody, staff or the public, in any way, shape, or form improperly, because if they're my appointment, you essentially are responsible for them, or at least responsible for their conduct. And perhaps an education and sunshine needs to happen, whether that's the responsibility of the board member, which I would say that it is, and not necessarily county staff. I think when you sign on to sit on a board, you are committing that you will follow the sunshine law. And so perhaps, you know, that's a policy thing we should look into on maybe having them at least validate that they've watched the 2 or 3 hour League of Cities video on sunshine, because that's free. But I think that there obviously needs to be some discussion or at least some education in that department. But again, oftentimes we don't like sometimes what people have to say about us. I mean, I think tonight we're probably going to get an earful about that. However, I mean, I don't know that legislative action is the response, because then maybe people may be fearful to come to us or to say something based on what we're going to do in retaliation. So I think it's a fine line. Commissioner Lober?
I was just going to kind of dovetail back to the point that I mentioned earlier. If you're unhappy with your appointee, even at this point, if you don't have someone in mind, or if you do have someone in mind, I don't need a reason if it's your appointee. If you want to move to have that person removed, whoever it is, I truly do not know who it is, go ahead and make the motion. I'll second it, and hopefully we'll get one more vote, and then you'll resolve that one portion of the issue.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Motion fails for lack of second. Okay, we'll hear item number 6, and then we'll take a short break because the next items are going to be a lot longer. That's all right? Item number 6, Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On June 26th, I, along with the other commissioners, were copied on an email from Rusty Roberts of Virgin Trains to our staff. I'm sure you saw it. What was contained in this email was shocking to me. In response to a very straightforward, fact-based email from Assistant County Manager Denninghoff, he stated that, quote, "I know you have my number and that of Adrian Scher of our chief engineer. I am confident a simple phone call would have saved you many keystrokes." Putting aside substantive issues, which I'll get to in a moment here, I can only think of one meaning behind the statement. Virgin Trains is afraid of the sunshine and wanted to avoid the transparency of public record. Given these facts, my concern is that this situation was not discussed on the record long ago. So I would like to do that. I do have a couple questions for Mr. Denninghoff. I'm very concerned about safety. These tracks cross many portions of my district. So I wanted to get a little more information about this email that went back and forth. When did the county first request update on the plans which would improve safety for Virgin?
The most logical answer to that, I think, would be in October of 2016.
And these plans that we received in 2016, in your opinion, are they adequate to ensure safety?
No.
Has Virgin themselves indicated that these plans are in fact not adequate?
Yes.
What deadline did Virgin give for providing us with the updated plans, which would include the upgrades they have committed to?
Could you repeat that question, please?
What did Virgin give for providing us with the updated plans, which would include upgrades that they have committed to?
In October of 2016, they had indicated that they would provide us the completed plans. We consider them, in October, that we considered them to be 50%,
okay,
approximately. They indicated they would provide completed plans to us in December of 2016.
Okay. December 2016. Did we get those plans in December 2016?
No. No.
Do we have those plans today?
No.
So the updated 50% plans, I guess, that we later got, did they make comments on safety or what the upgrades to the crossings would be?
We received a set of plans in the latter part of January, early part of February of this year. We were told they were going to be the completed set of plans. They were really the same set of plans we'd received in 2016. So they did not have the information that we were looking for.
Okay, this is what it boils down to. So this is the most important question here. without these plans that we've asked for and have yet to receive, are you able to make a commitment to the people of Brevard County that the construction on the rail and the operation of the trains will be conducted in a safe manner for the citizens of Brevard County?
Not based on the plans that we have today.
Yeah. Years ago, this company made a commitment to the people of Brevard County to take certain steps and make available their plans to try to increase safety. Quite simply, they have broken their promise and failed. This is serious. Not only are we talking about safety of crossings over high-speed rails, we're talking about isolating neighborhoods, many of which are in my district during construction periods. My question to you, Mr. Denninghoff, is concerned about the citizens of my district and their safety that you said you cannot guarantee or at least feel comfortable about. What action can we take as a board to ensure the safety of the residents of Brevard County?
Well, I think that staff continues to await the plans, the final plans. Mr. Roberts has indicated that we will, he's committed that we're going to receive them. He hasn't given us a date at this point, but that we'll have them and he'll coordinate with us. A part of that coordination is going to be to review the maintenance of traffic plans. That will be a part of the plans and necessary for us to approve them. That is the one part of the project that we have permitting authority over, is what they do in our road right-of-way to divert traffic and detour traffic. At this point, we haven't been able to review those plans because they haven't been provided. But I'm confident we'll get them. I just don't know exactly when, and until I get them, I can't assure anyone or report to anyone what it is that will be being done or when it will occur. And quite frankly, that's part of what stimulated the original email that I sent, was that I have received a great many phone calls, a few emails, but mostly phone calls, and received comments from people who have been wanting to know what the plans were. And I've really been left with a kind of a lame response of, I don't have them.
I was unaware of these emails. I wanted to point it out that staff is working incredibly diligently on this for the safety and well-being of Brevard County. It has not been yet met, and you guys tirelessly keep your eyes on this. So I do want to point out and thank you, even though we may not see it, that you're out there looking out for the people of Brevard County, many of them that are in my district. So I thank you greatly for your continued diligence, and hopefully that you keep me, and as well as the rest of the board, in that communication loop, so we have a better understanding of when we can rest assured that the citizens of Brevard County will be safe with these train crossings.
Commissioner Pritchett, are you done?
Yes.
Okay.
When I got this, I was a little bit taken back with it, and I called Mr. Abate. Did you know about this, County Manager, before this
Yes,
went out?
I did.
Because you had mentioned, or somebody mentioned to me, you guys were supposed to have a meeting in July or August or something, and something got messed up, and you weren't able to sit down with them?
I had spoken with Kendall Moore, and we were supposed to meet right around Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah, and you got pneumonia.
And I had pneumonia,
Yeah.
so we had rescheduled that. And I
Okay.
think it's scheduled for early August. I think the 1st of August.
Okay, because you know what, I'm in with the safety and stuff too. I almost don't know if this wasn't a little emotional going out, which is fine because it's important. But when he responded, he said that he's not going to begin any of this or do anything until you have a new updated set of plans. So I get it, but I think this really did something we might not have intended for it to do. So, John, I don't know. I was a little taken back when I got this right away, and then the response fired back. So, I am, Commissioner Tobias, I'm with you totally on the safety aspect with this, but I think a few things got left out in that conversation, so that concerned me a little bit.
I have a card. Rusty Roberts? Yes, please. Oh,
I did want to say.
you underlined that, so you don't have to, I'm sorry.
No, I really appreciate the opportunity. Rusty Roberts, Virgin Trains USA, Orlando, Florida. I appreciate Commissioner Tobias bringing the issue to the attention of the commission. And I want to say that to Mr. Denninghoff that he's correct. He did get a set of plans from us in 2016. I'm not going to debate 50% or 90. I think they were close to 90, but they were nearly 100%. And we did accept comments from his office, comments where he suggested many changes, many improvements to crossings, which we did this process throughout the entire corridor, just not this county, of course, and other cities. And we said we would incorporate those comments into a final set of plans and give them back. And he's absolutely correct, we did not. And that is our fault. That's an internal issue that we had with one of our engineering firms that was supposed to have incorporated the comments into the plan. We did not discover that those comments were not incorporated, and that firm is no longer with us. We did not discover that those comments were not incorporated until that meeting that follow-up meeting we had with Mr. Denninghoff, whenever it was, not too long ago, earlier this year. At that time, we said we would fix it, and we would come back with the proper plans that he's looking for, with the comments incorporated that he wanted. In the meantime, I want to tell the commission that we have had additional reviews. We've taken additional internal review of all the crossings from West Palm Beach all the way up to Cocoa, with the eye of just a more diligent look at is there anything we missed that we could have done. And more important, on top of that, Florida DOT has asked us to provide the latest set of plans to them so they could review them, and Florida DOT is making comments to those plans as we speak. That is why there is an additional delay to the delivery of the plans. When Florida DOT finishes their comments, we will, of course, supply those final plans to the county. And I want to assure the commission, assure Mr. Denninghoff that, as I said in my email, we will not begin construction until the plans are in place. We've had a sit down, they've been reviewed, but right now FDOT is doing their due diligence, which is appropriate for them to do, and they have the authority to do. And of course, we're working with them to complete those plans. So we're looking forward to getting those final plans to you because we're looking forward to the construction. We will have a construction meeting. We had our very first construction meeting. It was a preliminary meeting with Mr. Denninghoff with some of our construction management team. They were a skeleton crew at the time. Pardon me. We have a full construction management office based in Melbourne, which we have a full team of people that are in charge of the various zones of construction. And we are going to bring those people back into your office, Mr. Manager, to talk about the construction schedule, the plan that we have, how we do construction in terms of crossings, whether we, for instance, for example, we make a point not to do two crossings adjacent to each other because you have real problems with traffic at that point. So we do kind of move around the county so the traffic does not get disrupted too much. And then also, so we'll have the maintenance of traffic plans, and we work with the police and fire departments in that. And we would want to get all those people in the room to have that MOT discussion. And at that time, those plans will be finalized. We have also designated a public information officer on our team, one of my colleagues, one of my government affairs colleagues, who will serve as the key contact for the county. I can certainly be a key contact for the county, too. Most of the people here have worked with me in the past. But somebody that you will be able to, the department and the manager's office will be able to contact to ask questions and resolve any unforeseen issues. Apologize for the snarky opening line of my email. I thought that the email that went out could have been avoided if he had made a phone call. Many of the counties have had the same questions that this county has, and we've been pleased to answer them and move through the process as quickly as possible. We are a different kind of railroad. We're the kind of railroad that wants to work with every community and make sure that everybody's on the same page and that we work in concert, and we have minimal disruption in the area. So that's our pledge to this county, and we're happy to work together with you.
Commissioner Lober, do you have questions?
Yeah, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Roberts, would you say I've been fair with you thus far?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, and if you don't think so, you can say that. I'm not gonna jump across the dais or anything.
Please
But
don't.
No, it's too late in the day to do that at 9 o'clock at night. But no, what I would ask, I don't care whether you communicate by email or by phone with people. Whatever works for you and works for them is wonderful. But given the concerns that have been articulated up to this point, would you mind memorializing any phone conversations you have with Mr. Denningoff or county staff with a follow-up email to whichever staff member it is that you speak with, so that we're all on the same page? And if someone on the commission wants to find out what was said, they can go and reference that. And if there's some disagreement, obviously, I would expect that the staff member would say, well, I don't recall that portion of the conversation. I do recall this, though. I just think it would avoid any question about dancing around 119 or people trying to play games, because I don't see that being the case, but I understand that people are concerned, and it's an easy way to fix the concern. So if you don't mind, would you be willing to do something like that, just to memorialize whatever conversations you have with staff members by emailing those staff members?
We will be happy to do that. I will alert our construction management team, which, by the way, is already doing that. When we do a meeting, minutes of the meeting go out to everybody who is in the room.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Tabaya, are your questions for Mr. Roberts?
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Chair. Can I please get the overhead? I've just got one slide, and I'm glad I have you here, Mr. Roberts. And I thank you for making the commitment. I understand some lines get crossed, and 90%'s an A in my class, but I don't want to be part of that 10% that hit by a train. Yes. Just one. So what I'm asking here, and you may not have this answer right now, but this is part of my district. This is in Micco here, and on Holly Street crossing. And you see there's not many other crossings anywhere in that area. So my question is the plans have not yet been finalized for fire rescue to access these neighborhoods during construction. Is that fair to say that's something that you're currently working on right now?
That would be part of the discussion we have with the county staff when we come in with the final plans and our maintenance of traffic issues, discussion, plans.
So you'll deal with fire rescue, you'll deal with traffic flow.
We usually
you'll deal
hire
with-
off-duty police always when we do these crossing. If we have to close a crossing, we like to work with the police department to make sure it's covered as well.
Okay. What I would ask in the district in which I represent, not my district, but the district I represent, and I'm sure the other commissioners would equal, when you finalize these plans, I've been waiting for these plans. I guess I'm one of the people that have been, because the constituents contact me. Obviously, there are many crossings here. If you could provide those, if you could keep the commissioners in the loop, so when we do have plans, we're able to get with these communities and let them know just exactly what the plans are, the length of, it's a fair question for these folks. How long will this crossing be closed? What will the detour be? Route B, I take public transportation. How will that, as you can imagine, closing down a crossing for any period of time causes a great deal of disturbance, and folks are looking for those answers so they can plan accordingly, not just fire rescue, but people, for jobs and that type of stuff. So if you could keep us, in the loop, maybe that would be a little bit, the flow of information would be that much better, so we could get it out to our constituents, because I'm sure that, the safety of folks in Brevard County is extremely important to you as it is to us.
It is. Thank you, Commissioner. You should know, I do want to point out that we have been engaged, and I think I mentioned in my email, that engaged in meetings with every community, every municipality throughout the county, throughout the corridor, just for the purpose you discuss, to talk about these individual crossings. We did a meeting with also the Barefoot Bay community, their board, as well as Melbourne, and you're happy to do more. If we've missed somebody, please let us know.
No, I appreciate that, but I can't tell them, and you can't tell me right now, right?
Nope.
How long will this be closed? So
We
the
have
fact that,
experts to do-
yeah, the fact that you have a meeting is wonderful, but if you don't provide any information at that meeting, it's,
But
and I
we
can't,
do.
I can't.
We do. That's the
Then
purpose
how,
of the meeting.
okay, how long will that be closed?
I will tell you that depending on the size of the crossing, 2 lanes versus 4
Well,
lanes,
this
that's
is the one,
probably a 2 lane.
this is the one at Holly Street.
Generally, the crossings, some crossings can be closed up to 3 days. Some take 1 or 2. So you at least 24 hours, mostly about 3 days.
Okay. And how will fire rescue, what's the fire rescue plan on that one? Because I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a older population and minutes count when it comes
It
to,
would be helpful to me if you were able to provide me with this slide, and I can provide it to our construction management team and make sure they know the answer to that particular crossing, because I do not know.
thank you.
Is that everything?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we have 2 big items coming, like 2 large amount of speakers coming up, so we're going to take a quick break at the request of staff. So I said 5-7 minutes last time, and I ended up going like 10 or 12, so